Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's working. So this time this application is correctly working. I think. Well, not normally working. Well, as always, it's working as always. So, hello everybody. I'm Richard Gon of Work to Live podcast version. So this time I'm a little bit angry because I tried to create it I tried to create this episode, and so there was a which means so I failed to create in the previous segment because there was an accidental cessation, or there was an accidental stop in the recording of this episode, or in the recording of the of the previous segment. So which is fine. So I'm a little bit angry, and so in the previous segment. So I was happily talking about. I was happily talking about the topic of this episode, but actually, so there was an accidental stop, and I failed to create this episode in the last segment. So which is why so I don't know. So or I'm worried about whether I can speak out as happily as I did, or as I was doing when I was creating the previous segment in this episode anyway. So what I'm going to talk about is so I should tell you that zdravstvujte, меня зовут Кон Ричард или Ричард Гон. Приятно познакомиться. Это это о русском языке. And or this time is about this is about Russian language anyway. So if you have checked out the title of this episode, I think you have already known what I'm going to talk about. What I'm going to talk about is just a Russian word, which is a topic of this episode, and the title. I should tell you the title and the conclusion. And the title is "Пока is difficult, isn't it?" In terms of the meaning and how to use. And the conclusion is "Пока is while." "Пока не" is used as until, but just teaching the translation is not enough. So, which is what I have told you in previous or in past not segments, but past episodes actually. And so if you have experiences in learning foreign languages, I think this point is what you have already known, and which means so. And this is just an example, or Paka is just an example, this system, which is that is what I'd like you to know, and I should tell you, and maybe so why I'm studying English is because English is mandatory and for international communication. And when it comes to Russian language, no, maybe few people are forced to study, and maybe recently or in recent years, which means I'm creating this episode in the or at the beginning of January in 2023, or maybe which means there was, not, anyway, there is a war taking place in Ukraine, and which began which began last year, and concretely speaking, so I checked out what dates that war began, and that is maybe 22nd was 23rd in February in 2022, which is a beginning date, or which is a date from which that Russo-Ukrainian war began, or the Russo-Ukrainian war had started, and that the war has lasted, or that war has been prolonged, and there was maybe this time in this time there's really harsh bombarding, or harsh attack from Russia done against Ukraine or Ukrainian territories, which is why so So maybe many Ukrainian people are dying even on this moment. And so actually, so I think that war is one of the reasons for the learners of Russian language is why they began to study Russian language. And in my case, so by the way, so my pattern or how should I say my pattern of studying foreign languages is not normal or not ordinary one. And so it's like so sometimes I study Russian language and quit studying Russian language, and after which I study Chinese. I begin to study Chinese language and I quit Chinese language, and after which comes Korean language, and after which comes Chinese language, and still after which Russian language image sequence or image random sequence or image irregulars in that irregular manner of learning foreign languages. I have studied foreign languages, so which is why yearly base. I have studied Russian language for a long time, but actually, so my proficiency of Russian language has collapsed, and so is so is my proficiency of Korean language and Chinese language actually. And yeah, what I was supposed to talk about is Poka, the meaning of Poka. So Poka is difficult, and maybe most learners of Russian language have studied Pakanye as until, or translating Pakanye. So they translate Pakanye into until, but actually so it's difficult because in this case nie works as a negating word, which means so I should pause a sentence, which means so пока вине приехали здесь. Я не уходи, я не уходи, я не ухожу, or я не уезжаю. Please, please, please imagine such a situation, which means the situation is that the subsidiary clauses until you come, I don't live here. Until you come here, I don't live here. Please imagine such a situation. And whatever backgrounds or whatever circumstances lie under that sentence, but actually please imagine such a situation. And Pakanye, the neo of Pakanye works as a negating function or as a negating word, which means the subsidiary clause or until you have come or until you come is negated in the case of Pakanye. And so, but actually, translating Pakanye into English language, Pakanye has to be translated into until. But so when it comes to understanding, which is really important for learning foreign languages, but actually, so that before actually telling you the explanation of the meaning of Pakanye, I need to tell you the meaning of Paka. Paka is wild or wildest in English language, and which means, for example, please imagine another situation, which is while you're here, I stay here, or while you're here, I'm here, and using Russian language. So, пока вы здесь, я здесь, and using the past tense. So, пока вы были здесь, я был здесь, or if you're a woman, so я была здесь. I don't add any description about the gender difference of Russian language, and This is that, Poka means while. So which means, so if you when it comes to use Poka as the meaning of until, so negation is necessary. And so in the former example, so Poka ni vi Poka ni vi Poka vi nie priehali is just ja nie ujeharu. Ili ja nie uhadiru. Anyway, I used the past tense. Anyway, in such a situation, so until you hadn't come, until you came, I didn't live here. And so please imagine that so changing the word is necessary, which means if until you hadn't come is established. So the meaning is that while you haven't come here, I didn't live here. What? So using the present tense, while you haven't here, while you haven't come here, I'm here. And using the past tense, while you hadn't come here, I didn't leave away from here. Which is a meaning anyway. Which is a meaning of pakanie, which means until is a meaning of pakanie, but actually please imagine that there's a pledge or promise you have already made with that another person called you, or with you have made a promise, or you have made a pledge with God, which means I'm sorry for my using a bad or clumsy explanation, but actually anyway, so if so while you haven't, or while somebody hasn't come here, and you have to be here, you have to be there, or you do not live here. So literally or semantically saying, that's the meaning, that is the meaning of that is a literal meaning of pakanie, but actually there's a promise that so if that somebody comes here, you have to live there. You have to leave that place, or you have to live here, which is the content of that promise, was a pledge. You are forced to make with that somebody, or with somebody. And in the case of me, if you have to be there, be in that place, and if you have to live away from that place, if that somebody, or if somebody comes, you have to live here, you have to live there. If that somebody comes to that place, in such a situation, so while that somebody hasn't come, you can stay there. But actually, if that somebody arrives at that place, so you have to leave that place, which is a pledge, was a promise, and like which, and which is what you have to think when it comes to understanding the meaning of pakanie. And like which, this is just an example, and like which, so another one is that Chinese language doesn't have tense, which means if you frequently go to a park, so using Chinese language, that is translated into nichi gongyuan, or using if you like to use wo or I in Chinese language, so wo chu gongyuan. But actually, if you went to a particular park in the past, so you can also say nichi gongyuan. Or if you'd like to use I as a subjective, So what yuan is possible to be used. But actually, so which means, both of them have same pronunciations, and both of them have the same words. But actually, when it comes to distinguishing whether that what the speaker says is a frequent event, or what the speaker says is a past experience. To extinguish those two situations, or those two events. So you need to ask questions to that speaker, which means, when did you go to the park, or do you frequently go to, or do you often go to the park, or how often do you go to a park, which is what you have to ask that somebody, you who who is supposed to say 我去公园 or 你去公园, or which means, so I go to a park, or you go to a park, or so in such a case, if somebody tells you such a thing, so 我去公园 is, well, I go to a park, which I think is that somebody is supposed to say, like, which translation is difficult, which is what I did to know this time. So I'm thinking of ending this episode, and this time this application is working, and the title is Poka is difficult, isn't it? In terms of some meaning and how to use. And the conclusion is Poka is while, Poka is used as until, but just teaching the translation is not enough. So and I'm going to write a link to our web page image how to use, or the semantic, or the literal meaning of Paka is elaborately written. So which is why, I'm thinking of writing the link of that web page into the description column of this episode. So if you'd like to know the details, because I'm not to start with, I'm not proficient in Russian language, and I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in foreign languages, which is why, if you'd like to know more about the meaning of Paka, so please check out the description column of this episode. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. See you.